Psychology first lost its spirit, then its soul, then its mind. Strangely enough, it still behaves. This statement was made in jest nearly half a century ago, but it was a true description of the state modern psychology was in. Students come into psychology thinking they're going to learn something about themselves. They come into psychology thinking they're going to learn what makes them tick. They're going to learn why they feel sometimes happy and sometimes sad for no apparent reason. They want to discover, what lies in the depths of their minds. They want to know what is it that makes them human? What is it that makes them different from animals? Some want to know what makes them similar to animals, at least given their present behaviors. Students come into psychology thinking they're going to learn something about their lives, thinking that they're going to learn something relevant about what makes them tick. Instead, they're bombarded with research findings, lots and lots of data, and lots of boring, sometimes even commonsensical facts. For instance, one of the first things psychologists learn in these courses is that attractive people are considered more successful. Some of the other commonsensical findings we find is that people who are more articulate tend to be considered more intelligent. We also find among research findings that people who earn more money tend to be happier. So a lot of us ask, why are we studying psychology? This is not what we came into this field for. So what we're going to do is strike a compromise in this course. Your textbook is going to have access to all of these facts. You're going to learn all of these research findings and feel free to explore any topic that you consider valuable in depth. In these lectures, we'll try to keep psychology relevant to our lives. In these lectures, we'll try and keep psychology meaningful. Let me give you an example. Psychology was never a separate discipline in the traditional sciences. In the traditional sciences, whether they be from the Islamic world or the Christian world or the ancient Chinese, Japanese civilizations, traditional sciences always contained an element of psychology. There was no physics, no chemistry, no biology that did not have psychology as its part. Even the science of astronomy was then called astrology, and it treated the study of stars as if it was a study of human beings. So all ancient and traditional sciences connected psychology to a study of the world. Modern science, with its need for separation of disciplines, with its need to separate physics from chemistry, chemistry from biology, biology into zoology and botany, needed a separate science of psychology. And in this separate science of psychology, there was a need to create relevance. In 1879, Wilhelm Wundt set up the first psychological laboratory in Leipzig. This laboratory studied human beings as thinking, feeling, sensing beings. Many of the things Wundt studied are no longer studied, but they were important phenomena. Wundt was interested in the structure of sensation, in the structure of feeling, in the structure of how we experience the world around us. I'll give you an example. If you go into a room and there is absolutely no light in that room, if I switch on a light bulb with 0 watts power, you're going to experience a major change. You're going to experience a sudden flash of light. Where there was absolute darkness, now there is light. Now let's say I add another 100 watts. You will experience more light. Now let's say that you enter a room where there are 100 light bulbs in a big hall, where there are 100 light bulbs, and somebody decides to add the 101st light bulb of 10 watts. Would you even notice? So what I'm trying to tell you here is that there is a difference in our experience of light. When we go from darkness to light, it is seen as a huge change. But if it is just the addition of another 10 watts or another 100 watts even, when there are 10,000 watts worth of electricity in the room, you're barely going to notice it. Isn't it the same with our experience of money? Let's say you have no money and somebody gives you 10,000 rupees or $10,000 for that matter. And then let's compare it with somebody who has $10 million and you give them another 10,000 rupees. It's the same amount of money, but the satisfaction that it'll give you when you're a pauper is going to be huge. So somebody who has no money, when they get 10,000 rupees or $10,000, is going to feel very different than somebody who has $1 million and you give them 10,000 rupees. So the idea here is that Wilhelm Wundt wanted to see how people respond to different sensations in different conditions. So what happens when your skin is touched with a pencil, or when it's touched with a needle, or when it's touched with a hot iron? It depends on the environment, the context, your prior experience of things, and so on. So Wilhelm Wundt's laboratory founded the modern science of psychology by experimenting with people and by trying to find out what made them tick. Then we had another major contribution to the field of psychology in the early 1890s, and that was by Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was a neurophysician who was interested in solving the problem of hysteria. Hysteria was an illness in which mostly young girls would lose their minds. Sigmund Freud, when he hypnotized these young girls, found that there were many repressed wishes and desires that expressed themselves in mental illness. From there, he came up with his theory of personality. There are many criticisms of Freud, and we will study psychoanalysis in some detail in this course later on. But what I want to say here is that he made a major contribution to the field early on. He contributed to the study of psychology as a science. Sigmund Freud's major contribution was that he introduced the idea that mental illnesses could be treated by talking. He was the founder of modern psychotherapy, the talking cure. Before his time, many psychological interventions were purely medical or even primitive, such as poking a hole in your brain and letting blood out, such as inducing coma through insulin. We're all familiar with electric shocks, how they were used to treat mental illness. So what we need to understand is that Freud made a huge contribution. First, he used hypnosis, but then he used free association, in which the patient talked without any constraints, and he talked about their problems and difficulties and issues, and the therapist analyzed and interpreted what the patient said. So that was a major contribution to the field of psychology. So we see, on the one hand, Wilhelm Wundt in his lab did experiments on what's considered normal sensation and perception, and Freud looked at abnormal reactions of human beings. The only difference was that based on those abnormal reactions and behaviors and thought patterns, Freud proposed a theory of personality, which was to alter the course of civilization. So in this series of lectures, we will explore some issues in depth. I cannot promise that we're going to discuss everything that you consider relevant to your mental processes. But I will promise you that by the time you have finished with this course, you will have a renewed interest in human behavior and in the study of mental processes. Thank you very much.